Joining us now is Whiton. Christian, what exactly is the Obama administration doing right in this scenario? What are they doing wrong? Because it just feels like they've been quiet.
They have, and they're in very good company in Washington and not really knowing what to do. It's not just Obama that basically reached out to the Muslim Brotherhood and nodded at their assumption of power in Egypt, but also Republican mavens of foreign policy like John McCain and Lindsey Graham. It's unfortunate. So now we've really been on the wrong side of two revolutions, political revolutions in Egypt, and on the wrong side of the Egyptian people on the issue.
No, it's interesting because you mentioned two revolutions. Do you think the silence from the White House actually encourages these protests and actually gives a green light to sort of these revolutions? Because it feels like whoever the protesters are, then that's who the administration is going to back.
Well, unfortunately, I just don't think we really have a political goal in Egypt, which is a shame because we ought to. There's one thing that the Muslim Brotherhood has in common with Hezbollah and the government that runs Iran and even al-Qaeda, and that is Islamism, the political theory that you should unify mosque and state and have Sharia or Islamic law instead of democratically enacted law. So these are the people we should be trying to make life hard for, not nodding as they come to power. And, you know, we should also be clear we back the secularists, the real Democrats in Egypt, and we should do things to help them rather than just sit and leave this all to chance, because what happens in Egypt not only affects that world's most populous Arab majority state, it affects Muslim majority countries around the world.
You know, I was thinking maybe right on the eve of the whole thing in Libya that maybe President Obama had established his doctrine. Let's call it the Obama doctrine with respect to the Middle East, when he said, we won't let a leader kill or slaughter his own people. And then we fast forward to Syria, where we're probably up to 100,000 people who have been killed or slaughtered by their leader. What's the doctrine? What should the doctrine be?
Right. Well, unfortunately, the doctrine is basically whatever is in my inbox now, and how do we manage this so I don't look too bad in a domestic political sense. I think the doctrine should be, as I hinted earlier, which is to make life difficult for Islamists, ideally by using nonviolent means. Go back to the Cold War. What was the tip of the spear? Well, the tip of the spear was the Soviet Army, the Red Army, but the rest of the spear was communism. And today, the tip of the spear is terrorism, but the rest of the spear is Islamism. So trying to find ways to make life difficult, the same types of things we did in the Cold War to support reformers, we should support secularists around the world. If we need to arm them, you know, when actually the fight moves from the political realm to the military realm, then so be it. But, you know, we need a goal and we need clarity on this. And unfortunately, I think political correctness is getting in our way.
Right. Dennis Neal, just a quick question. Beyond Egypt, what country would be next to be hit with this kind of division among the population?
Well, it's you know, it's always hard to say. I think one that where it could happen and should happen is Iran. You know, you have that regime which is not very popular. You just had these phony elections there where only regime-blessed candidates could run for office, and you have some signs that the merchant class in Tehran is no longer satisfied with this government. And I think that's a telltale of good things to come. But again, you know, there was an attempt at a revolution there, and the Obama administration sat on the sidelines. These are things we should be encouraging because they advance U.S. interests. Egypt, run by an accountable democracy, would be good, and an Iranian regime, a government that was actually accountable to its people and not one that supports terrorism and tries to make life hard for the U.S., would be a great thing for world security.
Although, you know, and maybe you could argue with Iran that we kind of did some of the things that you talked about. You know, we've tried to kind of stoke, you know, the animosity within the country. You know, is it not politically correct? Forget about politics for a minute. Can we say that we should nudge a little bit more? I mean, should we have the CIA in these countries pushing buttons within the nations? Things that we did in the past to sort of topple people or leaders that we didn't like. Go back to those tactics.
Yeah, I think we should be very careful in what we do. The CIA has basically gotten out of that business. They were pushed out in the late 70s in the wake of Watergate. The Church Committee in the Senate, the Pike Committee in the House exposed CIA's successes and failures, and they're out of that business. In the 80s, we created the National Endowment for Democracy to do this. But unfortunately, the bad guys are wise to what that National Endowment for Democracy does. They kicked him out of Egypt, for example. Ned's head, who has the Beltway equivalent of tenure, 30 years on the job, actually is one of these people who believes that Islamists can be brought into the fold to support democracy. That has been tried in Lebanon, that has been tried in Iraq, it has been tried in Egypt, failed every single time. So unfortunately, yeah, we can't hold the president to complete blame on this because the tools we have to influence events abroad are broken. But I think we should try, especially with countries that are causing serious problems for us, and Iran is one of them.
Christian Whiton, thank you very much. That was fantastic. We